Well, it's Tuesday, and you all know what that means. As you probably know, NXT is now intensified as we head to Vengeance Day. But however, few things are taking place. We have, of course, the finals of the WWE Speed Tournament, but who will be the next competitor that challenge Jasper Troy for the Speed title? Well, that's an obvious question. We do have a number one contenders four-way match for the NXT Tag Team titles. So who's going to be the Vanity Project, OTM, the Culling, or of course former tag champions Hank and Tank. So that's a very interesting to take place. We even have the North American Championship on the line, but also Ricky Saints in a warpath against, of course, the man who is now the NXT champion, Joe Hendry. So we'll see how things will progress. But first things first, we're going to be reviewing, of course, Just Tap Out. If you guys remember, in the last episode, I reviewed GTO Girls Tournament. Now, I did not expect to see these recent shows, which is called Club JTO and Special. But however, the GTO tournament that took place, I did not realize something until I realized when I put it together about the name itself. And I'll explain a little bit about that when we get there. But also, just to add this bonus so we can finish up the episode, we have some news updates to give you guys updates on what's happening in the world of pro wrestling, such as what events the promotions are thrown out, who's booked, what matches are set, including developments that are happening in the world of wrestling as we speak. So, let's get ready for another episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Hey everyone, welcome to Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, TNA, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, J-Rod here. So, if you are new to the channel, welcome. This is a channel we do a lot of pro wrestling reviews from various promotions, not only here in the United States, but also in Japan, Mexico, Canada, Europe, the UK. In a world pro wrestling is not as big, but it continues to grow. We also, of course, do discussion videos, talk about various topics such as the wrestlers themselves, the promotions, factions, storylines, whatever we want to talk about. We also, of course, do more news updates. If certain information is unable to be on this episode, we can either put it on the next one or on a separate video by itself. We also, of course, do real-time news updates to keep you guys on alert if something has happened in the world of wrestling that needs to be addressed ASAP. We also, of course, got the Unagi Sayaka Watch and various other cool wrestling content as well. So if you like what you see, please subscribe to us and click on that subscribe button. You'll be getting a lot of daily reviews and other cool wrestling content as well. But if you like this episode, please give us a like on the like button or a nice comment in the description down below. Now, enough with the jibber jabbers. Let us begin. So, let's start with, of course, with GTO with Club GTO. All right, Just Tap Out or GTO. This is the recent show that took place this past weekend on Valentine's Day, of course, called Club GTO, and this was also on the 14th. But I did notice the lighting, which is this happened in the evening while the GTO Girls Tournament took place during the day. So it's completely a little different from what we were seeing. But however, what I also noticed, I looked on Cage Match. It also turns out there was 9 people that attended the show. So it looks like the same people who attended the GTO Girls Tournament were also the same ones that attended this one. But anyway, let's start. Our first match, we have Kenichi taking on Oni King. Don't know who he is, but he's an American, an African American who I never seen before, but it looks like he's been making his way to learn under Taka Michinoku. But the match was pretty good, but he did only look, King was mostly talking in English, doing like, come on, man, and all that. But however, Oni King was able to defeat him by applying a forearm strike onto him, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was done. Our next match, we have, of course, Mr. Mask taking on um, Tako Butsu. I don't know who he is. But yes, anyway, it was a pretty impressive match, but it ended with a submission. I don't know exactly what kind of move it was, but yes, it just went on in that. Now, our next match, we have Ibuki taking on, of course, the man who runs GTO, Taka Michinoku. Yes, the same Taka Michinoku I mentioned before, guys. But the match was pretty good. There was been a lot of the groundwork, and not to mention a bit of the submission technical aspects that we have seen. It played out pretty well, but I wasn't too sure exactly how it's going to be. I think some people might have thought that this match, if you ever watched it, you would think Taka, since he is the founder, he's going to win it. But no, this match ended after a 20-minute time limit, and just like that, it was over. Now, excuse me. There was a bit of a post-match promo coming from Taka to say to Ibuki. I don't know exactly what they said, but I'm not sure if this had something to do with the event that happened the following day, which is the GTO special that we will do next. But out of nowhere, the referee, who was a female referee, just blatantly attacked him. I don't know exactly what she said, but I thought it was interesting to see that. Now, our next match, we have a guy named Gigante Ayaka. I don't know if this guy is Hispanic, because we hear the word gigante, that means giant in Spanish. But he's facing against Bomber Tatsuya, who later I'll mention him again at the GTO special, involved in the GTO tournament. But the match was pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. Uh, but I can tell that in wrestling wise, Bomber was attempting to try to do certain things to take him out, like lift him up, applying like suplexes and all that stuff, because it's in you have a guy who's a bit more bigger than you, but he was able to accomplish that when he applied a modified fish buster, and I thought it was pretty impressive how he did it. But yes, but it ended like that, and then of course he did a post-match promo. Don't know what he said, and that's how the entire event ended. Uh, Pretty interesting show, despite that they only had 4 matches, but not bad. But however, we're done with this one. Let's move on with the next one, which was their special show that took place at the Ice Ribbon Dojo. Okay, we continue with more of GTO, and there's a special show that took place the following day on the 15th of February, which is a Sunday, at the Ice Ribbon Dojo in Saitama. Yes, folks, Ice Ribbon does have their own dojo. I've seen it. They did some shows there a long time ago. Not to mention, if you guys remember, they had that whole AEW thing for a tournament that took place. And involved in that had Ryo Mizunami, Maki Ito, Yuka Sakasaki, Meishuga, that's the same one. But anyway, it opened up with an exhibition match. They introduced a brand new trainee named Kato. Kaito, I think that's his name. He takes on Bomber Tatsuya. I mentioned him recently in the last review. But of course, this is one of those matches. Of course, you would have assumed that the trainee would have lost to the much well experienced wrestler, which has obviously been well known throughout the Japanese wrestling world. But however, this match ended in a 15-minute a 5-minute time limit draw. Was a very bit short, but it was over. But we did see Azusa Inaba making her play, and from what I read, she mentioned that he passed his test and that he'll be making his debut on in April, I believe. Yes, I think I have it in my notes here. Yeah, April 18th in Osaka. So basically, we're like maybe 2 months away, from what I can tell. But yes, so that'll be the deciding factor right there. Now, if you guys remember recently on the last episode, I put out the GTO Girls Tournament where they had that. Now, what I did not realize is this tournament is completely different and unique from every tournament we see in Japan. Now, the reason I say that is this: there's only one way to win in this tournament, and that is by submission. I think I know what some of you are thinking. For real? And I went back and I looked at the matches and I looked on my notes, what I wrote down, and I realized, holy crap, every match was won by submission. And that's the idea. So the tournament is based on submission because GTO stands out for just tap out. So that was the whole point. So it made sense. It's unique. And I have to say, it's different from any other tournament, and it would make sense why this tournament existed. Existed because it's all about you tapping out. It doesn't matter if you win by pinfall or submission, but with just the submission part, just like that. So I didn't even notice until later, but yeah. Now, anyway, just like the GTO Girls tournament, four matches were also made. Uh, we had four matches involving the first round. So let's start with that. The first one we have Akima AKM Naguya Na, Na, Nogai, I think that's her name. He takes on Taka Michinoku. So obviously Taka has more experience with submission. We've seen him plenty of times. If you've ever seen him, how he changed his style a little bit over the years. That probably played out in his wheelhouse, and he used what it was mentioned called the heavy killer. And just like that, he picked up the win. He moved on to the next round. Now, the next one we have Bomber Tetsuya taking a guy named Miyamasa. I have to say, Bomber Tetsuya was very impressive. I've been impressed by his skills and all that, but he was able to pick up the win when he applied what the Bomber clutch, and just like that, he moved on to the next. Next up, we have Mr. Mask taking on Yuban Genta. The match started out pretty well until, of course, Genta disqualified himself by, of course, removing Mr. Mask's mask. So basically, is a big no-no, and kind of like the same kind of rule we see in Mexico, of course, with the lucha libre stuff. Next up, we have, of course, Ibuki taking on Takabutsu. Pretty good match, but however, Ibuki applied his submission known as the Yellow Submarine. Every time I hear that, it makes me think of the Beatles songs. I don't know if that's where he got the reference from it, but I don't know. But anyway, just like that, it was completely over. Now, our next match is a six-man battle royale. So basically, there are various people in there. I hardly recognize any of them, but basically, you win either by pinfall, submission, or over the top. Most of the matches, people who were eliminated by pinfall, but it was Hito uh, Ligima that picks up the win, and just like that, so he picked up the win. Now our next match, we have a tag team match. We have a group known as the Big. It's the Yoshi tag team match. We have Big Aruka teaming up with Jumbo Inoue, taking on Lovlika, Hinano, and Azusa Inaba. But I have to say it was a pretty good match. Not gonna lie, seeing the Yoshis taking on, I recognize some of the names. Of course, like Azusa Inaba is one. But of course, the other three from the GTO Girls Tournament. It's great to see them. But the one thing it was impressive is Aruka applying a lariat onto Inano, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. Now, our next match, we have the semifinals of the GTO tournament. We have Bomber Tetsuya taking on Taka Michinoku. Now, I was impressed with Bomber Tetsuya for what he does. I wasn't too sure. But of course, once again, he applied the same move he did in the first round, which was the Bomber Clutch. And just like that, he picked up the win to go to the final round. Then we have, of course, Ibuki versus Mr. Mask. Pretty good match. But once again, Ibuki applied the same submission move, Yellow Submarine, to pick up the win. Now our next match is the singles. The Yoshi girls once again take the stage. It's a singles match. We have Mizuha versus Mirai. Yes, the same Mirai you guys know from Tokyo Show Pro Wrestling. Stardom and Mighty Gold, and now Michinoku Pro. So if you guys haven't forgotten, Mirai studied under Taka Michinoku in her early years. So that explains why she showed up. And not to mention, I'm sure Taka wouldn't mind having her. But what I did not know is that she is the GTO Girls Champion. So she holds the belt. So that kind of tells us the story right there. But of course, you would have assumed that because Mirai would apply a bit of the powerhouse that will allow her to win. Some of you may have forgotten that she does have a bit of the submission expertise, and that's how she picked up the win. In the post match, we see Big Aruka showing up out of the blue, and I think she might have been the one who won the tournament in the previous day. And it seems now she's aiming for Mirai for the GTO Girls Championship. So looks like that's going to happen, but I just don't know when or where. But if it does happen, I'll let you guys know. Now our next match is another Yoshi wrestling match, but this time it's for the GTO Girls Tag Team titles. Um, Tomoka Inaba and Rhythm defend the belts against other members known as the Big Fusion. Of course, they're part with Big Haruka and Jumbo Ino. This time is Izoka and Oi. They actually are the challengers. It's interesting now because Aoi and Tomoka Inaba were best friends when they started out. They actually hanged out, but now they're opposite side. And I thought it was a pretty good match, but unfortunately, AOI had the bigger uh, opportunity when she pinned Rhythm, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. And of course, once the match was done, we did see a post-match promo from Tomoka Inaba. Now, I have no idea what she said. She even called out Taka Michinoku. I have no idea what she said to him or what was going on. But hopefully we hear something about that soon enough. But I think that's it for that. But let's move on to the main event, which is the finals of the GTO tournament. Ibuki versus Bomber Tetsuya. Now, like I said, Bomber Tetsuya has been very impressive to me. I like his style, but I wasn't too sure where this was going to go until, of course, Ibuki once again applied the Yellow Submarine, and just like that, it was completely over. However, during the post match, Ibuki did a promo, but he called out the guy named Ruya Tekikura, who is the current champion, the king of GTO, and he was at the Battle Royale, from what I can tell, but he did not win it. So it seems that Ibuki is aiming for the belt. So I can't wait to see what he's gonna do. We'll just have to wait and see. So I think that's pretty much it for this one, and I think we are done with the GTO stuff. So let's move on to our last final review, NXT. Okay, NXT. Now, our opening match is Lola Vice versus Kelani Jordan. Now, of course, the rivalry dates back last year, of course, when Kelani Jordan took team captain for the TNA versus NXT. If you guys remember, Kalani Jordan was the TNA Knockouts World Champion, and that led to the whole thing. And of course, Lola Vice was no longer defending Kalani Jordan. People were calling her turncoat. They've been going back and forth. But however, last week, or was it 2 weeks ago? Yeah, 2 weeks ago, Kalani Jordan attacked Lola Vice by slamming the ladder into her right hand, the same right hand that she uses for the back fist. That was always been the main weapon. But of course, Lola Vice wasn't joking when she said, "At least I have my feet," and she wasn't wrong about that either. And I think that's the thing that Mr. Stone underestimated. But however, Kalani Jordan decided to viciously attack the injured hand, and that's exactly how she won the match, by targeting and, of course, forcing Lola Vice to submit. And this would be, of course, the shocking development where Lola Vice submitted for the first time. She mostly lost to pinfalls, but never to submission, so that's kind of something different. Now, Tony D'Angelo put out a video promo. As you know, he has his unfinished business towards the Dark State, and that's exactly what he's going to do, because his first victim is none other than Cutler James. Now, of course, Dark State saw the whole thing. They think he's out of his mind, that they're going to blatant murder him. But however, Osiris and Griffin are Osiris and, of course, Sugar were in fact they're preoccupied with the number one contendership for the NXT Tag Team title. So we'll see how that plays out too. Now Joe Hendry out of nowhere attacked Ricky Saints in the parking lot and just brawl right there. If you guys remember what happened last week, Ricky Saints attacked them after his match, and that kind of lets it up right there. Now, during an interview with Sarah, Shallow Hill, of course, talked about his match with Ethan Page and the North American title. But, however, Hank and Tank showed up and they tried to give a little bit of whatever they were saying. But of course, Shallow Hill returned that favor too. But later, like, do you have any idea what he said? I have no clue. So I don't know what happened from there. But anyway, in the ring, Joe Hendry made his run to the ring to do a promo. Of course, he wasn't happy, cheery, all that because he's pissed. He wants Ricky Saints no matter what. And that's exactly what happened. But Ricky Saints come out and saying the reasons he did what he did, it makes him sick to his stomach that someone like Joe Hendry is the NXT champion. He calls him that he is, of course, no talent. He doesn't have what it takes to become champion. He feels like I'm the real champion because I got the looks, I got the talent. But of course, it was later decided by Joe Hendry that this match between them, it's going to happen on Vengeance Day on March 7th. So we'll see where that goes from there. Now, Izzy Dana has been watched the previous vignette by Tatum Paxley talking about the dark side and her darker side. But of course, the Culling showed up out of nowhere. And of course, Izzy doesn't think that there is a darker side from it. But if I was Izzy Dame, I would have kept my mouth shut because if you think there is no darker side of any individual, well, that's where you are blatant mistaken because that's where you should be worried. But she doesn't want to worry because she thinks we still got till Vengeance Day. Now, our next match, we have Cutler James versus Tony D'Angelo. As you know, Tony D'Angelo is on a mission to obliterate the Dark Side after destroying everything that he's built. But of course, you would have assumed that Dion Lennox would get his hands on him. But however, Tony D'Angelo was able to pick up the win when he applied the spine buster. 1, 2, 3, it was over. But of course, Dion Lennox attacked him out of nowhere. But Tony D'Angelo fought back and he put him through the metal steel chairs, steps, and just like that, it was completely obliterated. But the referees and security tried to separate them. So basically, he may have gone one member of the Dark Side down. He has 3 more to go. So we'll see where that goes from there. Now, Ethan Page, as you know, has been hanging out with the Vanity Project talking about his upcoming match against Shallow Hill. Miles Bourne, once again, has been asking for a shot of the North American title, but Ethan Page doesn't feel like if you would have listened to me, you would have gotten a title shot. But of course, that's what he's been doing the entirety of the time. And then Ricky Saints, as you know, telling him, I hope you guys got what you want. The tag titles, we all get titles because, you know, there's Jackson Drake as the Evolve champion, and of course, Brad Baylor and Ricky Smokes will be involved in the number one contendership match. So we'll see where that goes from there. But let's jump into that. Of course, we have the number one contendership of the NXT Tag Team titles, OTM versus Vanity Project versus The Culling versus Hank and Tank. So you can tell that this was a total mayhem event because there's 4 teams. Referee could lose track about who's involved. But of course, that idiot Jackson Drake was involved in this, and he took out Sean Spears, giving Brad Baylor the opportunity to win. But however, even though Vanity Project may have won this match, but if I were them, I would keep my eyes in the back of my head because the Dark State are not messing around. Now, Kiana Carver put out a vignette talking about how no one can control him. Not NXT, not LFG, not Evolve, nobody. But he's sending a direct message to the man he will face, of course, and that is Sean Legacy. So we'll see where that goes from there. Now, Joe Hendry was talking to Mr. Stone about he wants his hands on Ricky Saints, but Stone told him that you have to wait until Vengeance Day. So that's what's really happened. Now, you all saw what happened last week with Sol Ruka and Zarya over the this unique number one contendership. Well, apparently it seems like they were done. We're not sure exactly. But later we jump in to Fatal Influence, of course, Daisy Jane talking about her match against Soruka for the NXT title. And of course, Soruka had some things to say to her, telling her that you always hide behind, the Fatal Influence and all that stuff until she got attacked. And then Zarya just made the save out of nowhere. But the real question is, should Daisy Jane be worried? Well, if I was her, she should. Now, Elio LaFleur and Ila Knight were having a chat with Sean Legacy about him, of course, having the guts to take on Kiana Carver. But however, of course, LaFleur and Knight are set to be in the finals of the Speed Tournament, which we start next over there. And of course, the match was intense. I mean, it was so speed up. But however, the match ended in a time limit draw after the 3 minute, of course, happened. But however, Mr. Stone said something that he decides to go a different direction. He said, normally in this type of situation, Jasper Troy would remain as the champion. But however, he decided to do something different. So he said next week, for the first time ever, is going to be a three-way for the speed title. But however, he also said that the time limit has been expanded to 7 minutes. Now, this is something new that has never happened because normally we know it's 3 minutes, but I think it fits perfectly because we have three competitors. So we'll see where that goes. Now, while Shallow Hill, as you know, is preparing for his match against Ethan Page, he runs into Miles Bourne. Of course, Miles Bourne is unhinged that Ethan Page is not giving him an opportunity for the North American title. But Miles Bourne said, Shallow Hill stressed, look, if I do win, I'll give you the title shot. But he says, but I don't want you to win. I want Ethan Page. So they kind of went back and forth arguing with this until they were separated. Now, as you know, recently we've been seeing some things going on with Stax. Lexis King and Ariana, they recruited Uriah Connors. But they've recently been trying to talk to Charlie Dempsey to join. And I didn't realize it that this is about, of course, wrestlers who are second generation and are dubbing them as DNA. As you know, Uriah Connor is the son of Fit Finley. And of course, Charles Dempsey is the son of William Regal. So they're trying to throw in their daddy's names because we all know who Lexis King's father is, and that is Brian Pillman, Ariana Grace, Santino Marella. I don't know about Stax, but he's going to be part of that family soon. So, but however, Charlie had that look like I'm not sure, I'm not into the whole thing like that, but it seems like they still want him to be involved. Or I had told them, that he's still thinking about it. So they asked Connors if he's in. He said, yes, I'm in. So that's how that rolls up. Now, Mr. Stone had a little chat with Fallon Henley. As you know, there's been talks about for the women's speed title. And Blake Monroe, as you know, she was going to face Jaida Parker, but apparently she's out on injury. But he's currently focusing on trying to figure out what's the next steps for the women's speed title. And that's when he thought he needed one more competitor. And the person that was in mind was Blake Monroe. So, of course, she's in it. But unfortunately, her first opponent will be Thea Hale. So basically, that's what's going to happen. Now, our NXT North American title is Ethan Page versus Shallow Hill. But of course, Ethan Page has his grease monkeys behind him. The Vanity Project. Baylor, Smokes, and Jackson. So that they were going to get involved no matter what. And then, of course, because of that, Ethan Page picked up the win with the cutter. And then, of course, during the post-match, Page and Vanity Project trying to beat up Shallow Hill. And then Miles Bourne, of course, showed up and gave a helping hand. But Shallow Hill wiped out Vanity Project when he jumped off the ring. But however, Miles Bourne grabbed the chair and he was going to break the ankle of Ethan Page if he didn't give him his title shot. He was about to do. He jumped and then he stopped himself at the nick of time and told him I will actually give him the title shot. And then later says, I knew you would hurt me. And that's where, oops, he actually did it. He stomped his ankle. And just like that. So basically, he didn't think he was going to do it. He actually did it. And of course, Mr. Stone in the exclusive video, he asked him, what the hell were you doing? And he told him, you told me to go out of character. So basically, Mr. Stone, you kind of gave him the keys to that. So, we'll see what happens then. So as of right now, we're done with the reviews. Let's move on with our last and final thing, news updates. Okay, so welcome to our news updates. So let's begin, as always, with some upcoming events, starting with GCW updates, of course. As you know, they'll be making their way to Rochester, New York, also known as Brody Lee Country for What's My Name on the 27th of February. They just announced that the GCW World title will be defended against a local wrestler from Rochester named Cheech. So Acticus Coger will defend it against him. And then, of course, they'll be making their 2 days later in Hartford, Connecticut for um, Ballin blocking on the 29th of February. Charles Mason will be in action to take on Dr. Redacted. And then finally, we have the Ashes to Ashes event, one of the two shows of the 2 day events in Atlantic City on the 14th of March. John Wayne Murdoch will take on Vipress. Now, on the 27th of February in LA, of course, we have the West Coast Pro event, Evil Empire. 2 championship matches have been announced in another regular match. The tag team belt, Crush Boys, Starboy Charlie and Titus Alexander will defend them against Danny Orion, and of course Shimbashi. Then, of course, we have the Golden Gate title defended. Alan Angels, formerly known as Five, will defend his title in a 3-way against G Sharp and Andrew Cass. And then finally, for that day, we have Royce Isaacs taking on Stephen Wolf. Now, Big Japan Pro Wrestling, they hardly have any women wrestlers participating. It seems they'll be making their way to Taiwan, and they invited 2 Yoshi wrestlers to participate. And this will happen on the 1st of March in Taiwan, in Taipei. They brought in, of course, members from Colors, Saki and Yuko Sakurai, but they will be in a 3-way against Princess Pistachio from Grapple Max. So it's interesting that they booked a wrestler local of the area. We have, of course, Empire State Wrestling for Tough Luck on the 13th of March in where's the place again? God, anyway. But anyway, they announced that Joey Janela will be making his return to this promotion. It seems like he was a regular there. Then, as you know, I mentioned about Rose Girls Pro Wrestling, which is a women's division of part of Zero One. Well, they're going to have a show coming up on the 20th of March in Shinkiba First Ring. So they haven't announced the match card yet, but I'm sure that will be announced soon enough. And then finally, as you know, New Tex Pro Wrestling will be making their appearance in Las Vegas during WrestleMania week, and their show is called Sin City Stampede that will happen on the 16th of April. And they just announced Texas' very own as well, and AEW star Maya World will be there. So yeah, that's pretty much what we hear. Now on to some developments. As you all know, I mentioned during the NXT um, review that Jaida Parker is out of injury. Well, apparently, is out because of an injury. Turns out that she had a neck injury, so that's the main reason she was pulled. Um, as you know, there's an organization in Japan called the United Japan Pro Wrestling, where they have promotions like New Japan Pro Wrestling Noah and all that. And apparently, they just announced 2 new directors. Amongst them is Meiko Satomura. As you know, she is the founder of Sanda Girls, and they're part of it. And they just have Takashi Zazaki. He runs, of course, the promotion Freedoms. I don't know if he's part of the organization. If he is, that would make sense. Max the Impaler, it was announced that she'll be making her invasion to Japan for a couple of shows in Kyoto, Fukuoka, and Ueno. And then, of course, we have, was it? As you all know, there's the new Hayabusa. If you guys saw the documentary about Hayabusa from the FWM show that about the Sushi Onita, well, the new Hayabusa, it was reported by Fightful Select, that he went to visit the gravesite of the OG Hayabusa. So it's interesting to hear about that. Uh, if you probably ask yourselves this question, then why did this new Hayabusa showed up? This was coming from the blessing of the OG Hayabusa's only daughter. So she gave the blessing. If you guys saw Will Ospreay, he asked her for her blessing if it's okay to have the same kind of gear that he wore. If you saw that on the historical crossover from a couple years ago, and she was there too, in case you saw it. Now, if you guys remember, when Stephanie Vakir made the choice to leave CML, her dream job was to be in WWE. However, she's not the only one who actually has that kind of ambition. So is a female wrestler named J Rod. No relations, in case anybody asks. Uh, Ringside News kind of twisted the narrative on this. They were saying that she's holding out on W so she can go with AEW. But however, um, J Rod kind of cleared up the air on that, and this is what she said: "I never said I was holding out for anyone. I only said working for WWE is my dream of mine one day. I respect every company in the industry, and I'm focused on growth, working hard, and the right opportunity aligns with my goals." So it's true. I mean, look, she knows that probably there will be chances that she will not get signed, but she respects every company that will give her the opportunity. So I don't know where Ringside News get this idea, but I hope they get their fact checked anyway. Now, Will Ospreay recently, as you know, is the producer for the all women's promotion in the UK, Pro Wrestling Eve. He mentioned that he reveals that Bozilla was supposed to be involved in Eve's Wrestle Kingdom 8, Queendom at 8, but she is out on the ACL injury. So it's already been planned that he wanted her there, but apparently that did not happen. But however, he also mentioned the Fightful Select that he wants to have Timeless Tony Storm, Mercedes Monet, Athena, Red Velvet in future Pro Wrestling Eve shows. So I'm sure he and Tony Khan will talk about this because I know that's the type of thing with Tony Khan. He likes to be more communicative with the other promoters and whoever they're working with. I mean, we know that AEW has a great working relationship with New Japan, Stardom, CML, that sort of thing. And then finally, Miyu Yamashita is very happy in relation to the idea of the Wrestle Queendom has been sold out. And this is what she said: "Sold out? Thank you. Now it's time to fight, and I'll deliver it with my kicks." So basically, she's excited that the show has been sold out. So I can't wait to see what she's going to do. So hopefully, you guys are ready. So, anything else? Let's call it a day. All right, so I hope everybody enjoys this episode. Coming up, we have another New Japan show that's already out, and of course, we have AEW Dynamite. So, as you probably can guess, we come off the heels after, of course, Grand Sunday. I'm sure everybody is curious about Wheeler Yuta, how he looks like now that he's bald, and of course, we are now probably heading on the road to Revolution. So, we'll see how that plays out too. So until then, I will see you guys in the next DWZ time, same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So goodbye, and have a nice day. Bang.